Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Selamat malam. Добрый вечер. My name is Dee. I'm the community manager for entrepreneur resorts and beach clubs. Saya Dee, saya adalah community manager dari entrepreneur resorts dan beach clubs. Добрый вечер, меня зовут Динара, я менеджер по сообществу для компании Entrepreneur Resorts and Beach Clubs. And welcome to Vision Villa Resort, where we host our business accelerator programs. And you can host your own programs as well if you don't know. And this is an amazing space where magic happens. And today we have two special people here who are transforming people's lives, and we are very happy to have them here speaking at Startup Grind Bali. And I would like to introduce our facilitator for Startup Grind Bali, Terry Billington, who is a woman, a gorgeous woman, a very smart woman, and she's #1 global female business coach and also global lead facilitator for iLab, which is our business accelerator that we hold here and in South Africa in our resort. And Terry has been transforming lives and businesses for many years already. She's our favorite facilitator, and she's also author of 3 books, Living an Abundant Life, Millionaire in Training, and Miss Millionaire. And she's also cooking a new book, and please ask her when it will be live. And yeah, she's amazing energy and a really inspiring woman. And she's going to introduce our guest speaker today, whom I have been chasing for 1 year to come here, actually. And I have one question for you. Who came here who used Go-Jek? All right, we have a few people here. That's good. Okay, please give warm welcome for Terry Billington. Sorry, I'm too nervous.
Got microphone. I'll use that anyway. That's all right. Thank you, Dee. That's a really warm welcome. Wow, it's so cool to see so many of you in the room. So some of you I've already seen in the room many times during this week because I'm facilitating the program with you. I'm really excited to get this started tonight, and this guy is just the coolest guy that I've had the pleasure of interviewing, and I've interviewed some amazing people, and to hear his story and for him to be able to share the story with you, you're in for a real treat. So I like he's got a nickname, and I'm going to tell you that as well, but I actually like his real name, and his name's Michaelangelo Moran. So I like Michelangelo, it's kind of cool, right? If you had that name, would you want to use that name? Absolutely, but Mikey we'll call him for tonight because that's like the name he goes by. Yeah, your Dee's already told you about Go-Jek. So he's a co-founder of Go-Jek, which is a really, really cool company. And you're going to get to hear about that and a couple of the other things he's doing. And in particular, what he's really passionate about at the moment, which he's set up a music space that in Bali that we're going to tell you about as well. So rather than me keep talking, how about we give him a round of applause and bring him up? Thank you. All right there.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming along. I just dropped the microphone on the ground.
Of course. Yeah, Dee's been chasing me for a while. Yeah. I was like, all right, you know what? Let's get the show on the road. Let's start 2018 with a bang. Because she's like, when are you coming to Bali? I want to do a talk on Go-Jek, blah, blah. But we're here now and happy that you all came. Awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so I think what's really important, because there's a lot of people in the room that have got businesses, have an entrepreneur mindset, they live in Bali for whatever reason, and they want to know that when you build a successful business or successful businesses, who were you to start with? You know, were you born like that, or, you know, what's your story?
Wow, okay, so born and raised in Jakarta. And I grew up between Jakarta and Singapore and the US. when I graduated from Boston University in 2003, I moved back and started off actually with DJing and event management. I've been DJing for about 15 years now. And in that way, you kind of, I don't know if any of you guys have worked in event management before, but you network very, very fast and you meet a lot of people very, very fast. And from there, that's when I kind of was just like hustling and getting gigs. And somewhere along the lines, my mom and dad are involved in fashion. And I started working in the fashion industry for like a little while. Decided it's not really my thing. So went back into DJing and then formed my own event management company where I was, bringing in DJs from international and making clubbing events. And somehow got inspired to become a designer. So I moved to San Francisco in 2008 and there's this kind of like big private art university called Academy of Art, which is the biggest private art school in America apparently. And my connection with Go-Jek was really a stroke of luck because the current CEO and the CEO that, the co-founder that started it with me is my best friend. And when I was graduating from Academy of Art University, I did digital design. So basically everything having to do with like print media, websites, motion graphics, video, the whole 9 yards with digital design. And he submitted the business plan to me right, I think like a month before graduation. At that time it was called Go-Bike, it wasn't called Go-Jek yet. And he's like, what do you think? I was like, this is the most amazing idea ever. And I went in and I invested and then Go-Jek was basically my first design client. So I'm the guy that designed the logo, the website, all the jackets, basically the whole branding for Go-Jek, which is, pretty crazy. One of the most recognized logos in the whole nation. And then my journey from there is I just did all the branding and marketing from there. And then, of course, I started like all these kind of like side projects, which I'll get into later on because I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions about Go-Jek first,
Yeah, so for the sake of those, because there's like potentially 1 million people who can get to see this because it's all recorded.
Oh, sorry.
It goes out globally.
Yeah.
So tell us what Go-Jek is.
Okay, so what started off as actually a transport company. So when we was planning the business plan, imagine it to be kind of like a booking for a taxi, but using motorcycle taxis. It's from the original name, which was Go-Bike, we changed it to Go-Jek because Ojek means motorcycle taxi, right? So from Ojek it became Go-Jek, and we wanted it to be actually multi-service. And how it all started is because my best friend Nadeem, who's the CEO, he actually worked in a company called McKinsey, which is like a big consulting firm. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but anyway. And he was given an office car and he was given a driver, and he just never used it because Jakarta is like one of the worst traffics in like the world. And he was just like, I can't be bothered just to, drive like an hour, 2 hours being unproductive when I can just use an Ojek. And what happened was he basically had an Ojek driver that was on standby right outside his house. So he started using this guy a lot and then kind of like was having him on speed dial on his phone. So, you're booking this guy through like a mobile phone. It wasn't even a smartphone then. And he was getting him from point A to point B and giving him his fee. And then Nadeem would like forget his laptop or forget his USB or forget his hard drive or something. So he would be like, hey, I forgot my stuff at home, can you deliver it for me? So then now you're extending it from just transport to the courier service. And then also he smoked cigarettes. So, he would ask the driver to be like, hey, can you buy me a packet of cigarettes? So now it's transport, courier, and shopping. So that's kind of like where the multi-functionality of an Ojek driver started. He realized that these Go-Jek guys, they actually can be trustworthy, and you can use them for services other than transport. So he asked the guy, he's like, okay, I want to learn about your business. I want to know what are the rules and regulations of being an Go-Jek driver. So we found out two very, very fundamental things, which is one, Go-Jeks are territorial. So if you're getting an Go-Jek driver from Seminyak to Kuta, that guy can't pick up another customer from Kuta. He has to go back to his station in Seminyak. There's like a station with like 20 drivers. There's a head of a station, and he's the guy that basically coordinates all the drivers. So you can't even have a random driver come up to a station. He has to kind of register with this guy. It's all like unwritten Go-Jek code. It's not even like by contracts or anything like that. And then the second thing is that there's a big queuing system. So when you're booking, when the guy has already finished his passenger in Kuta and he's going back to Seminyak, you basically have to go through like your 20 drivers before you pick up another one. So we realized, we're like, okay, this is a very, very inefficient system. These guys are waking up probably at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, getting customers from like 8 a.m. to like 10 a.m., probably on average making about 30 to 50,000 rupiah a day, averaging about 4 or 5 customers, you're making about 250,000 rupiah. So we asked this guy, we're just like, all right, and also, you know, we asked like his friends when we were interviewing the guy, we were just like, hey, what if we made a system where we can give you customers to your mobile phone, and then we take a commission? And then straight away, all 5 drivers said, well, what if we pick up passengers on the road? We said, well, that's your business. We're not going to take a cut. So then the idea of Go-Jek was born. You're booking kind of like a driver from kind of like this system where you're going to be calling like some sort of like a, you know, like a call center, right? But then we had to build it. So we got this guy who was like an IT guy, total like 1980 Mac like interface. It was just like really bad, but it did its job, which is you have an input field from and to. It calculates the distance, which opens Google Maps, which we're still using today in the Go-Jek app. And then you pick your service. Based on the distance, it calculates the price. And then, voila, you have your expense. Now we need drivers. This is probably, the Go-Jek business plan was about October 2010. By August, that was the Go-Jek business plan was August 2010. The system was made in October 2010. Now we needed drivers. So what do? We ask friends and family and whoever uses Go-Jek drivers are like, okay, do you guys have a langganan? Langganan means like your usual Go-Jek driver that you always use. We're making this system, we're making a new company, can people join? We started probably we started in like November. By December, we only collected like 5 drivers. We're like, this is way too slow. So we gotta like scale it up. So starting from like 5 drivers, it became 20. From 20, we asked these 20 drivers, okay, we're making this new company. Can you hire drivers and we'll compensate you for everybody who signs up? It became 20 to 200 in another 2 weeks. So now we're at January 2011. January 2011, we basically had, you know, I was doing all the branding, I was doing the website, I was doing, you know, the uniform and everything. We had the systems, and then green light, we launched Go-Jek. This was January 2011, which I don't know if you know, you're hearing a lot about Go-Jek now, but the origin story is that we actually had a call center in the beginning in a space that was probably like here to like there. One guy picking up the phone, one guy dispatching, and then maybe a meeting room over here. So the office was just like really, really small. Number one complaint on pretty much everyone I knew that complained Go-Jek, they're like, I can't get through to your phone. I'm just like, we only have one person picking up. Anyway, we started expanding, we started getting orders. A lot of marketing was actually done through my DJing, where I was just going around like DJing all over Indonesia, and I said, hey, if you're ever in Jakarta, I made this new company, like, please try it out, you know? And whoever tried it out was just like, wow, this is really, really amazing, but I can't get through to your phone. So fast forward from like about 2011 to 2014, it was actually a side project that kind of like didn't really die. Like it was one of those companies where we were making enough money for the company to survive, but then we couldn't scale because at the most, we probably had about 6 people picking up the phone and then 6 people dispatching. And then, you know, you're dealing with, like when you're doing a manual call, you have to make sure the guy's actually picking up the phone to, you know, get the order. And then you're like trying, and then the guy gets lost, and you have no way of monitoring where the guy is. I mean, it was hell. It was like really, really intense. So then, long story short, you know, I wasn't involved 100% in Go-Jek. I was DJing. Nadim was in Zalora, and then he eventually moved to Kartuku, and then there was North Star, which is a big private equity company from Singapore, that said, listen, this could be $1 billion company, but we need you guys there full time. So then Nadim was the first to sign up. He called me up, and he called another guy, Kevin, who's one of our really good friends, who became the CFO of Go-Jek. And then what we call Go-Jek 2.0 was born. So straight away we got funded in March 2014. By April 2014, I was telling my friend Dita over there, we really lucked out because where we had the Go-Jek office, we had a tech office on the ground floor. So we went to the CEO, and CEO was one of our friends. We said, we need 5 guys dedicated for Go-Jek. One is an iOS guy, one is an Android guy, one is a back end, one is, do you guys watch Silicon Valley? It's so funny because I literally watched season 1, Silicon Valley, and then I did this where I'm like, oh, there's going to be a Scrum Master, there's going to be like all these stuff, and I was like, hey, it reminds me of a TV show that I just watched. And then you know, we were doing all the term sheets and all that. By May, we kicked off everything. I mean, I'm talking about we literally devised like the whole UI from everything. And the crazy part about Go-Jek is that you have a company that was already established for 6 years that is your benchmark, which is Uber. So a lot of people, when they ask me, what is Go-Jek? Well, it's basically the Uber of motorcycle taxis, if you think about it. But Uber only had cars, where we had multi-services. We were just like, you know, devising icons, how you do pull-down menus. I mean, we literally like was getting everything from like a user perspective and making sure everything is foolproof, efficient, and just made it super easy. By November, we had a beta. And I remember ordering the Go-Jek for the very first time, and I'm like, this is not gonna work. And then the Go-Jek driver came to the office, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then, you know, we were getting everything with the social media. I was the head of the social media, the creative and everything, making sure everything was prepared for launch. And then we launched the app in January 2015. One of the biggest booms of why Go-Jek was kicked off and actually gained a lot of traction in the beginning was because when we had the app, and at this point, it's still the 3 services. It's still shopping, courier, and transport. We had a mobile app code. So let's say, you know, you have a mobile app code and you gave him the code. He gets $5 for free. He orders a Go-Jek for the very first time, you get $5 for free. And there is no limit to how many times you can spread this code. You can only give the code to him once, but then you can give it to her, you can give it to him, her, and like everyone. So people were putting it on Facebook, were putting it on Twitter. I mean, it was spreading like hotcakes, you know? And you can imagine we were burning a lot of cash very, very, very fast. But the beauty about Go-Jek is that as I told you just now, when that guy appeared in my office in November 2014, you try it, it works, and you're like, this is amazing, and you got a customer locked. You got repeat customers, and it kind of just like kicked off. We did a deep dive on kind of like what customers were using Go-Jek for, and we realized that the number one thing in shopping was food. So what did we do? We made a menu, and we started asking, for the first thing was actually we started asking our customers, what is your favorite restaurant in Jakarta? I mean, at this point, it was only in one city, right? So out of, I think, like, you know, several emails and questionnaires, we got the top maybe like 30, or no, it was actually 300 restaurants in Jakarta, where we basically had spies, and we just like sent them out, and we like collected menus and just plugged them into this interface where you can order food, and then the Go-Jek driver picks it up and then gets you food. I mean, you guys know martabak? It's like an Indonesian dessert. We launched GoFood in April 2015, and in 4 weeks they made $80,000. So can you imagine like restaurants coming up to me and being like, hey, you didn't ask for permission, like, to putting in Go-Jek app. I'm like, how much sales did you get? $80,000. I'm like, why are you complaining? But yeah, it's, you know, from there, of course, there's all these other services that we made, and with each market, with each service that we've made, you're basically getting a new customer base. Because I remember there's a lot of people coming up to me saying like, you know, we love Go-Jek and we love you and we love like what you're doing and everything, but I didn't use Go-Jek until GoFood came out. I remember my mom like never used Go-Jek, and she was like, what's Go Massage? And I'm like, well, you got a massage person coming in your house? And she started using it like all the time. She's like, amazing, you know. But yeah, I hope that I'm talking a lot, but if that explains like what Go-Jek is. Yeah.
He's really easy to interview. Yeah, that's super cool. And I mean, I think the key message that I got out of that, and your co-founder actually had a problem that he had a solution, he created a solution to, and you saw that that problem was probably what a lot of people had, and therefore it was born from that. Because I mean, that's where a lot of great businesses start, right? And it should always start from what is it that's a problem out there and what is the solution you can provide to it. And that's what you did.
Correct.
So from, what about the name?
The name?
Yeah, Go-Jek.
So I was explaining before, so the business plan 1.0 was actually Go Bike.
Yeah.
And then actually it was me that was just like, hey, you know, there's Ojeks, which is motorcycle taxis. Yeah. And I'm like, well, why don't we just call it Go-Jek?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And then that set the foundation for the rest of the branding, because then you created GoFood, GoMart, GoPay, and everything else. And it was just like Go everything, you know? Which is really funny because there's so many different kind of like memes and ads that are made from these Go's, which I'm not really going to get into because there's... There, yeah. They make some really funny stuff out there.
So where did you know where to stop in regards to the services you offered, or haven't you?
You mean with new services?
Yeah.
With new services, I think we're always going to come up with new services. I mean, of course, with manpower and tech, we're actually very limited, but where I feel Go-Jek is going is from here, is you're always, as you said, trying to solve a problem, you know? And because the user base of Go-Jek is already really big, you know, you are just providing a new kind of like platform for people to do something. Yeah. And, you know, we're gonna go, I mean, there's something that we came out with, which is called Go Liga, which is like you're providing a platform to buy like, you know, soccer tickets and stuff like that. GoTix will, you know, moved into not only like concert tickets, but you can buy movie tickets and so on and so forth. I mean, I can't really get into detail about what we're working on, but it's one of those things where you recognize a problem, well, why don't we try to provide something that makes it easier for the customer to to do what they need to do, kind of thing, you know? Yeah. What started with from the origin story of that is that you have like, you know, hundreds of thousands of drivers where you can basically utilize them for anything. That's what the start of Go-Jek was. It was these Go-Jek drivers being multifunctional, right? So you're just adding a new, kind of like a new service for them to do. And it's really funny when like Go Clean and Go Massage came out. They're just like, is the driver gonna massage me? I'm like, no, that is not what's gonna happen. Yeah. But yeah, there you go.
Cool. So from the perspective of that business, it's like you've got other interests, so we'll come back to Go-Jek as well, but you've got other interests, and one of them was property. So Go-Jek was already happening when you got into the property business, or
Yes,
how
it was.
did that work?
Mm-hmm. So property came kind of like out of us just, like my business partner is this guy named Fadi, and he has been DJing for longer than me actually. He's been DJing for 20 years, and he came to Bali in 2000. And it's one of those things where I think we came into the property business a bit late. I mean, I wish we were already in property in 2000 because look at how much land value has appreciated in value over. I mean, yeah, land value has appreciated here in Go-Jek. In Bali. Sorry, the camera kind of like distracted me just now. And what happened was he came up to me and he said, "Listen, there's a lot of people wanting to move to Bali and wanting to build property here. So actually, you know, I came up to him and I was like, all right, well, why don't we try this out?" So what started off as just kind of like an online booking agency, because we were just DJing in Bali a lot, and people were coming up to me going like, "Hey, where do you stay in Bali?" And then so I was just like, okay, well, you can go over here, you can go over here. They offer some really, really good rates. And I was like, man, these guys are making a killer money from me just recommending them, and I'm not even getting a commission. Why don't I do this myself? So then we hired some staff, and we were just like, all right, you know what? People are gonna email you asking blah, blah, blah. And then we get a commission out of it. So from there, we extended it even more, and we actually got like a construction team to actually build villas. And I was the guy also from DJing and from Go-Jek, just like promoting like, hey, if you guys want to build property here in Bali, I can do it for you, you know? But it wasn't my passion. I mean, it was just kind of like a side project. We made some money, and then I'm kind of like stopping it because I just realized that, you know, you can't, especially right now with the property market in Bali, feel like it's so saturated and it's already kind of like peaked, you know? It's not really, I mean, especially also with volcano that just happened recently, it's just like Bali market is just down, you know? And we've been waiting for kind of like that pop to like go back up, and I was just like, you know what, like we can't just like wait for things to just bounce back. You just have to kind of just like make that decision to be like, all right, you know what, we're gonna stop. So yeah.
So when there's, obviously you had a successful business already and you went into the property business, and I mean, there's a risk in property no matter when you go into the market. There always is, because the market shifts, and it's like business, right? It can shift at any time. So what do you recommend in regards to that if others that are already in a successful business and they sideline into another business, because you've got two focuses then? So what's your advice around that? I mean, you've obviously got a partner in Go-Jek. So what's your advice about how do you actually run two businesses and keep the focus on both?
Hello? Yeah. I don't know. I think like it's one of those things where you're always going to have it's all about like, I guess, efficient time management, you know? And I'm one of those people that, you know, I guess I put more effort to something that I know that is giving back. And then what happened was I just realized that I was putting effort in one thing and it was just not really, I wasn't really gaining anything out of it. And then you just have to kind of just be like, you know what, we have to stop, you know. So I think my advice on it is just like, you kind of like, you know, it's just so cliche, follow your heart and like all that stuff. But it's just like, if it's something that you are putting so much effort in and you're not getting the gain that you want. I mean, what we did actually, we took the company that is the property company, as in the staff and all that, and then we pivoted to do music, which, you know, is my passion, which we'll get into, like, I guess in a bit.
Let's actually segue into that now, because that's the thing, saying follow your passion, and it's too easy for people to go into a business that they think there's an industry for, not doing enough research like you did with the property, but not saying you didn't research it, but knowing the market was shifting. But all through, even with Go-Jek and with that, your passion's always been there, which has now led you to where you're at now. So you've got Go-Jek and you've got your passion. Tell us about that, because that's even cooler.
So I think the common denominator between all three companies is that you're helping people. You know, I help people with Go-Jek, you know, with basically every type of service you can imagine, and then helping people with, you know, provide, like I was one of those guys that was just hosting a lot of people coming into Bali, and then people were always asking, where do you stay, where do you go? And then so I decided to make a property company where I can help people. And then with this new thing that I started, actually, I'm going back to my roots with music, and I'm trying to create sort of like a DJ co-working space music hub, if that makes any sense. So basically, like, I've already made the recording studio and the lounge, which is, the lounge is like, imagine kind of like a karaoke room specifically geared for DJs and electronic music, where you have cameras ready for like Facebook Live and broadcasts, and then you have, I guess, you know, really, really amazing sound system and 3D mapping and like all this stuff. And then downstairs from, it's kind of like a ruko, it's a shop house. Downstairs I'm making a cafe. So that's going to be where the co-working element's going to be active. We're going to be doing a lot of talks about, you know, how, I guess, how to increase your DJ game, how to make music, and like all this stuff. Because again, it's the common denominator is helping people. I want to support local communities and all that stuff. So it's still, we've made the lounge and the studio. You can actually rent it out already. But I feel like the last missing link is just the in-house traffic that we can gain from the cafe. Because I've been inviting people to see the lounge and the studio, and they're really amazed, but we don't have that kind of like walk-in traffic where if you're in the cafe, you can check out the studio and the lounge, and hopefully people will rent it out from there. And a cool other extension that I have from all these facilities is that I have an online record label. So anything that gets produced from this studio, we of course will handpick, and if we think if you're fitting the sound of our company, you can be exposed globally, because we're using this platform called Labelworks. And Labelworks is kind of like an online agency for music distribution, where they're already plugged into like YouTube, Spotify, Beatport, TrackSource. There's like over 100 platforms where you can submit the track and it just goes everywhere. And we started a record label in October 2017. It is 2018 right now, right? And we've released about 7 tracks, 1 track every 2 weeks, and it's been the top. I mean, we're fortunate enough from all our exposure that's been doing really well. Like top 10 or top 25 on Beatport already, so it's moving, you know.
So that's another business that you've got. So how much input do you now have in Go-Jek in comparison to how much input you're putting into that?
Actually, the story behind Go-Jek is that I'm not active anymore. Is that in October 2016, I quit the company officially, actually.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where, you know, a lot of you guys seen how Go-Jek is expanding, and there's a lot of really amazing things that are happening around the company from an outside perspective, or even from a user's perspective. But working inside that company, like, you have no idea the stress levels that were there. I mean, like, you're talking about every day being in about 30 to 40 different WhatsApp groups. You guys know Slack?
Yeah.
About over 100 Slack groups. You're answering anywhere from 200 to 300 emails a day. You are the brand director, so anything that gets produced and gets exposed online has to be approved by you, where you have 14 different departments that are trying to meet with you. And then also the number of people that have your phone number to complain about Go-Jek being down, or I have a really good business idea that I want to, it was just like, it was intense. So I made a decision where I was actually, it was like kind of like burning me out and my health was being affected. So I went up to Nadim and I said, I don't know if I can do this anymore, you know? And of course, like, it wasn't a very, very easy exit. You can imagine there was a very, very big emotional battle for me where you're like, wow, I created Indonesia's next revolution, but then I'm exiting the company, or I'm trying to exit the company. So did a really big speech in front of the BOD, all the investors, and everybody was crying and stuff like that. It was pretty big. And then I'm out. But one of the things where I told all the Go-Jek people is that you gotta understand, this is my baby. Like, I created it, you know? I can't just like be like saying goodbye and then not like being part of it anymore. I was just like a judge for a Go video competition that they did. I'm still advising on like logos. I still go to the office. I'm just not involved on like a day-to-day. So my actual 100% focus right now is the music, actually, the music facility and the music label and all that.
Is there potential? Because I mean, usually when you've got multiple businesses, there's some synergy apart from you're helping people or you're with people. Is there synergies between any of those businesses?
Well, actually, something that I proposed to Go-Jek, I actually did a presentation there, is something that they're trying to do with it's called Go Fest. So basically, what started off as kind of like a food court in one of the malls in Jakarta. So you have about, 20 to 30 like top Go food vendors, where they've kind of like established like a amazing kind of like area to hang out, bean bags. There's a stage for like DJs and bands and stuff like that. And everything is GoPay. So you can't pay by cash, everything is cashless. So I told them, I'm like, why don't we bring GoFest to Bali? And kind of like almost doing a like more Bali style where, you have like a big park and going to be doing like, I guess like a Sunday market style. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm plugging like what I know with event management and music and DJs and all that, and trying to get, I guess, like something with Go-Jek going as well. You know?
So with that, would you have DJs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the goal is that this event would probably not be just one day. It'll probably be like a week-long event where, there will be different entertainments every day, from like bands, DJs, maybe talks as well. And it's just something to kind of attract people to go every day, where it's not like, oh, you know what, it's just a food fest, I've tried all the food, why should I go back, kind of thing,
Some level of synergy between the organisations that you start, and knowing when to enter into a new market that has synergy with an existing market, know when to exit out of a market is really important, because otherwise if there's no synergies with it, then like I said, you've got too many split focuses, so therefore you don't know what to focus on, and that's can be quite common.
Yeah, and also, after going through the journey with Go-Jek, I thought, what is the next thing that I really, really want to work on? And there was like a bunch of people saying like, hey, can you help me with this project? Can you help me with that project? And nothing really stuck. And then I'm just going back to something that I love so much, which is music, And I think with that, right now we've made this facility and we're not making any money, and I'm hoping that it's going to get traction. But it's one of those things where when you're going back into something you're so passionate about, the money is kind of like not there. You're kind of just putting all this energy because you love doing it so much. I mean, there was a kind of like a thing with just DJing as well. You either get paid to play really, really bad music that you don't want to do, or you don't get anything for playing music that you love so much. I mean, I used to DJ for free in all these places because they didn't tell me what to play. I just played what I loved to play. And so I'm hoping that, it is a really expensive hobby, opening a recording studio and all that, but I really hope that it's going to gain some traction,
Yeah, that sounds cool. Where is it?
It's on Sunset Road. If you know Bali geography, it's between Jalan Kunti and Jalan Mertanadi, which is the last two traffic lights of Sunset. There's a big Bali Praia sign, which is the name of the company, basically.
Okay, cool. All right, so I think right now there's a lot of people in the room, so we might get a lot of questions. So let's open it up for some questions. So who has a question they would like to ask? Here's a microphone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sri. It's very nice to hear your interview. Can I ask questions to you and to you? The interviewer as well. Do you mind if I ask questions to you too?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so my first question, you know, Go-Jek and these online transport has controversies, especially in Bali, controversies like, like for instance, the local drivers have problems with them and sometimes they could get violent. I feel very bad when I heard these things. I try to listen to both sides, but I also would like to know, how did you deal with it, with these challenges when you were still in Go-Jek? And for you, I have a plan to write a book, but then one of my problem is, no, actually two of my problems. First is procrastination, and second of all is not feeling good enough, not feeling like I deserve to write this, who the hell I am writing this. What would you advise to me for this? Thank you.
All right, thanks. You go first.
Wow, that era of Go-Jek was intense. I mean, you had drivers rioting everywhere from every single major city. It was crazy. One of the things that we actually did was we kind of sent in some spies. And what we did was, because the thing is, you have Go-Jek drivers who are a little bit more open-minded and they want to try out a new system and they're like, wow, okay, you know, we can actually earn more money and I can work during my own time. I'm getting all these medical benefits. And then you hear the Go-Jek driver side, which is like, they're taking away my business and like, you know, like I'm working day and night to like, you know, help my family and this is what happens and blah, blah, blah. So we kind of sent in these like kind of like non-Go-Jek sort of like thing, and we said, hey, do you actually know what it's about, you know? And so we educate them and we say, you know, you can actually work in your own time. Hey, did you know that you get medical benefits? Hey, did you know that like actually you might get the cash straight away by being an Go-Jek driver, but you get more orders and you actually earn more money. I mean, this is the kind of like the shorter version of what the story about I'm trying to tell you, because let's say there was like, you know, a riot with like Go-Jek drivers like in a certain area. Well, we kind of like wait till like things of course calm down, and then this is what we do. We start educating people. And then slowly by slowly, even like the most intense like areas, we all converted them to become Go-Jek drivers. Bali is a little bit trickier because then you're dealing with like local mafia and all that. And that's beyond really our control, but we're trying our best. And I know there's like certain areas like Canggu and like all these places where Go-Jek's not allowed, and we just have to accept it, right? But I mean, it's all about education. I think if you actually know what it's about and you actually realize that this is actually going to be beneficial for me, well, why not? You have nothing to lose. There's no cost of becoming a Go-Jek driver, right? It's just like you just got to try it out. If you don't like it, turn off your phone, right? It's a no-lose situation. And then that's how we kind of like stop these kind of like, I guess, hostility, if you think about it. And then if you become a Go-Jek driver, there's like this brotherhood where people stand together and they help each other out and stuff like that. I hope that answers your question.
Cool, my turn. All right, it's interesting about writing a book, and it's a little bit about, you know, similar to like being in business, and it's like Mikey said, it's you know, following your passion and knowing that if you're passionate enough about something, you want to share it with people. And, you know, there's problems out there all the time that we have the ability as people to be able to solve. And the fact that Mikey can do it, or I can do it, or you can do it, or anyone else can do it, we all have that opportunity, we all have that right. So to believe that you can tell a story, and that's all it is. It's like having a business, it's like sitting up here, it's all about telling a story. And some people want to read that story and some people don't. But it's almost like selfish for you not to write a book, because I'm curious now. I'm curious what it is that you want to write a book on. And, you know, the discipline to do it comes from the outcome as to why you're doing it. So when you're very clear on why you want to write a book and what message you want to get across, what story you're telling, maybe what problem you're solving, then the passion to do it and the discipline to do it comes from that. But from a realistic perspective, it's so easy to get distracted, to feel like, why would anyone want to read my book? For me, I just made sure people gave me deadlines, and I knew I had to do things at a certain amount of times. I knew the outcome, so I planned, why am I doing it? I started with the beginning, I had the end, and I just had to fill in the middle. And I just did it bit by bit by bit. But believing in yourself is the hardest thing to do. Everyone else will believe in you. And now that you've said it, that's the first step. You've told this whole room that you want to write a book, you have to do it, right? So just have the discipline to do it. So we want to know what your book is. Does that make sense? It's sometimes, it sounds really easy, but it's like starting business. Sometimes you just got to do it. Just get up and do it. Is there anything you would add to that, Mikey?
Yeah, in reference to what she said, I think, it's also, you gotta just be realistic, and maybe writing a book is a little bit too, I guess, overwhelming, and just set targets and deadlines, and being like, I need to write the first chapter by this, and as she said, just go do it. A lot of people came up to me and was like, wow, Go-Jek's a great idea. And I'm like, did you do anything about it? You didn't do anything about it. We did it, you know what I mean? And so, as she said, just do it in the very end.
Questions? Please.
Yep, Ramos?
Hi, I have two questions. So you were saying that you have been doing DJ for about 15 years before you started Go-Jek. Yeah, so you knew about your passion about music, so you're pretty sure about that. What was the thing that motivated you to start a company that had nothing to do in music? And was it the motivation because of the money that you thought that you would get and then that you would make another step? Or what was it? I'm curious about coming from a place very different as an artist, as a musician, going to another type of company. And the second question is that if you wouldn't have had all this stress or these situations in the company, would you still stay there, or do you think you change for what you are doing now? Because at the end, following your passion is what you want to do.
So, to answer your first question, I was in a position where, I was kind of I also took a very big turn, right? I became a DJ, and that was a big platform for me to learn a lot of things like event management, people management, time management, and then went into fashion, and then went back to DJing, and then became a designer. And one of the things that pulled me to start this company was because I knew this is what the country needed. When you're aiming, when you're looking at Go-Jek and seeing how many people it's going to impact. And you know what? It was one of those things where I didn't know how big it was going to be. People always ask me, do you know, did you think Go-Jek was going to be this big? I'm like, I had no idea. It's one of those things where we actually made a seed round, which is not a lot of money. I was like, I'm not going to say the money. But anyway, it was one of those things where we put in money and I had no idea whether we were going to make it back. So to answer your question about money, like it wasn't about money. It was one of those things where if I could do something to help the country and the city, then yes. It was kind of like a pet project where I was like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes kind of thing, you know? And then the second question was about... Oh, okay. So one of the things of, you know, it goes back to the whole property thing. If Go-Jek, you know, it was one of those things where in the very beginning it was exciting. It was one of those things where I was hands-on in a lot of things, and I could still control a lot of things. What I'm trying to say is that you work on something that still excites you. And I think because of the stress and how overwhelming it was getting a little bit too much where it didn't excite me anymore, which is why I dropped the property thing, which is why I dropped Go-Jek. I mean, of course, there's so many other multiple factors, but another thing about, you know, my exit to the company is that I'm one of those very, very lucky people that just got involved from the very beginning. I'm not the most amazing branding person. I'm not the most amazing designer, but I have an eye for these kind of things. So you're getting to the point where this is like August 2015, where you have, you know, KKR and like all these companies dumping in $500 million, and they're expecting a 10x return where your branding has got to be world class, you know? I think I've done everything in my professional capability to take Go-Jek to where it is, and it's up to someone else who has that professional capability to do it. So I actually recognize that and I stepped down from it as well. So in a way, if there was no stress, yeah, I would probably still do it, but there would be a point where I'm like, no, I have to stop because I'm not the right guy to do this anymore, you know? So I hope that answers your question as well.
Just while we're waiting for that, just quickly, how important is it, or how important was it, do you think, to have your own personal brand built? Because when you've got multiple companies, you keep going to the next one. You've got to build up credibility again with a new company. How important is it to have your own personal brand built?
I think, I mean, this is, I guess, from the DJing side, right? I think it was a very, very big influence,
Yeah.
you know? From my own personal, I was just like networking like crazy. I mean, you're getting booked into so many gigs. You're getting booked internationally as well, where I'm like DJing in Taiwan or Taipei or any of these places, and I'd be like, hey, if you're ever in Indonesia, you know, check out Go-Jek. So you're on a personal brand in terms of like awareness. Yes, it does help. But also with just like credibility from the people who do know me, and they're just like, oh, you know what, Mikey's a cool guy, like let's just like check out like what he's doing. And then as the thing about what I was talking about with Go-Jek, you just get the user to just try it, and it's like an amazing service, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not really like, I mean, there is kind of like a personal brand and star power, and I think I got like a really good story behind that. I mean, I got another good story, which is George Clooney, who just made the tequila brand. You know, he started this passion project from tequila, and I guess like he was just serving it to his friends, and then they all really liked it, and then, you know, because it's George Clooney, he's going to promote his tequila brand, and it became like $1 billion company. So that kind of helps as well.
Yeah, it totally does.
So yeah, personal branding does help.
Cool, thank you.
I was just wondering, just a question about doing business in Indonesia. I like you, I'm not like you in the level of success that you've had, but I'm like you in the sense that I see a lot of problems that I want to solve. And I'm constantly coming across these little things. I'm like, oh, if there's only a business that did that, then it would be great, you know? But Indonesia being the way it is, sometimes there are things that really get in the way of starting businesses in so many different levels. It's really easy to get discouraged. And I talk to a lot of my entrepreneur friends, and they're like, "No, don't do business in Indonesia. It's just it's a nightmare." And there's a lot of nightmare stories. And I guess you've done this a bunch of times and had some success with it, to put it mildly. So how do you get over that? How do you get over that sort of inertia? And do you have any tips for just like really kind of pushing through that, either practical or internal, emotional type of things?
I think, when you're trying to kind of like do things where it's coming from like a humble place and you're trying to help people, and you kind of like, whatever obstacle is kind of thrown in front of you, you just go for it head on and you just like handle it. With Go-Jek, the crazy part is that there was no benchmark. There's not like, I'm Pepsi, let's see what Coke's doing, and then kind of like go from there. With Go-Jek, you're basically starting like, everything was just new, and we just kind of just like was trying to figure out ways to help people, and I think where we started seeing a lot of traction and success was the amount of impact that it kind of like was helping people, helped us on the side. Maybe you're trying to start something where there is a lot of kind of like roadblocks, but where we kind of like move forward was that we decided to do it like a little bit more mass market, And when you have like the support of the mass market, there's almost like no stopping to you. I mean, I don't know if you guys actually know the story. In December 2015, Go-Jek was banned everywhere. There was the Minister of Transport who just signed a document, was just like, all online transportation is banned nationally in the country. I remember I was in Thailand, I wake up and I'd have like 10,000 messages, and I'm just like, oh my God, we might not even have a job tomorrow, And what happened, in a matter of hours, the people spoke. There was like, people were just like, this guy's an idiot, like being very vocal. Save Go-Jek became a worldwide trending topic on Twitter. And then one by one, it was like the governor and the president being like, I call upon the Minister of Transportation to reverse this law because he's being an idiot. And within 13 hours, the guy reversed the law. You know what I mean? When you're, I guess like, I don't know, like I'm trying to find the right words to answer your question, but it's one of those things where if you're doing something that will help people in a very, very big way, and people are saying, don't do it, well, if you actually recognize the benefits and it's actually going to actually do what it's supposed to do, then just do it, And with life, you're going to be thrown 100 obstacles or thousands of obstacles, but you're setting a goal to get there, and whatever happens, just be like, no, man, that's where I'm going, you know what I mean? And don't be bogged down by all this, you know what I mean? There's always going to be forces left and right. And I think we really lucked out by having the right people on board to handle those situations. So I guess that's another key answer to your question. The right key people to handle the obstacle that you're going to be facing.
So I live in Jogja, and though I really appreciate being able to order martabak at 2 o'clock in the morning or gudeg, what really inspires me was the stories that we'd hear about sort of Go-Jek drivers like coming to other's rescue. The woman driver in Jakarta who broke her leg, and there was like a march. And even in Jogja, even the Go-Jek drivers hanging around at like, the Kataprak place, there's like a camaraderie. They're like high-fiving each other. And can you talk a little bit about where that culture came from? Because I don't really see it anywhere else. Is that something that sort of came up organically, or did it come from within, like team branding or culture building? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think there's so many different factors to, I guess, like, it did happen organically, to answer your question like very simply. But it's one of those things where Go-Jek kind of like excelled to become the cool brand, like out of nothing. It was just maybe because we just had a really, really solid logo, because a lot of people was just telling me, there was like, your logo has set the tone for the branding of the company. And also, I guess how we were marketing us to be this fun, kind of like vibrant company. Like, we were doing these kind of like social media posts that was just like, oh, forgot your gym bag? Go-Jek it, or something like that. And it was just kind of like just making jokes about the uses of Go-Jek, because it was such a new thing. Nobody really knew, like, oh wow, this is a really cool company, what am I gonna use it for? You know what I mean? And then from the driver's side of things, it just like, it was one of those things where you have a guy who's like, you know, he might be just like a nobody, and then he might be like the laziest person, non-hardworking, and then you put a Go-Jek jacket on him, and he's like, whoa, I'm like proud on what I stand. And I think there was this just like kind of like brotherhood that just formed, and you know, it just like was just like, you know what, you signed on to this game with me, and let's look out for each other, you know what I mean? Just buy a uniform, which is just so crazy, because it's like you're literally just putting a jacket on somebody, and then all of a sudden they're just like best friends, like, you know what I mean? And we didn't set the tone for that. We didn't set like an SUP being like, hey, be nice to all the Go-Jek drivers or anything like that. You know what I mean? It just like so happened, you know, and it's something that, you know, it's priceless. We couldn't buy that. It just made from, it just excelled the brand in that way. I hope that answers your question, you know.
Okay.
Cool. We'll just have a couple more and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. I want to ask you a question about, I use Go-Jek almost every day for everything, like Go Massage, everything's like Go Send, all the things. In every people
Well,
that I
thank you.
know, I mean, it's like for the Go-Jek, after the service, he always like, not a begging, but please give me 5-star and please give me 5-star. There is one time, like the Go Massage, the lady is talking about her divorce story and then how he deal with the customer that won't do plus. So she just like keep talking, you know, doing a massage, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is the first time. But then after that, he just like, please give me 5-star. And then is that 5-star for your massage or for your story, you know? So I'm just like, so what is exactly the star for the Go-Jek driver or for all the service? Because
Sorry, I'm not
the
understanding.
5-star, you know, like when we order the Go-Jek, and then after we left, and then if you want to use it again, they will please star the Go-Jek. Right? Rate, yes? Sorry, I mean the rating, 1, 2, 3 until 5-star. So every time the Go-Jek do the service, sending everything or anything, they sometimes text message or they directly say, please don't forget to give me a 5-star. So yes, but sometimes I just give 4, sometimes give 5, but I mean it's like, how is important for them to get 5-star from us as a customer?
So, I guess to answer your question, I mean, like, operations for Go-Jek is the biggest nightmare. It's probably the biggest department in Go-Jek. You have, if I'm not mistaken, up to 1 million drivers right now, you know. We're about 700,000 on Go-Jek and 300,000 on Go-Car. And the star rating is actually our only visible way of judging on how good they are, because we do have a base. Like if they cross below like 4.5 average or something like that, like we have to be like giving warnings or something like that. It's actually our way of maintaining to that. And of course, like that's not the right way of doing it. It's like, please give me 5-star. But we really can't control that, right? You know, so of course, for something like that, we are hoping that the customers actually do report it, because you guys are the only way of, you know, helping us manage who are the good ones from the bad ones. I mean, if people, we've had cases of like, just customers being harassed by Go-Jek drivers or whatever, you have to report it, you know what I mean? So, yeah, the rating is like, they have to maintain like a certain number of stars to actually. I think so, or they lose their job, right?
Cool. All right, last question. Thank you.
Hello. My question is related with the first question. Do you have any selection criteria for the drivers? Because I have horrible story. 2 months, just a second, 2 months ago, one Grab driver tried to rape me. He couldn't because I bite his tongue. And then he tried to kill me.
Is it a Go-Jek driver or is it?
Grab driver.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I survived.
Over 1 million, right? So there was like a crazy story on like how we scaled, which is in the beginning you're actually pulling people, training them one by one, and we were scaling up maybe about like maybe less than 1,000 a month. But there was like, rigorous training. You're actually doing all the background checks and everything. And then what happened? Grab launched. And then we're just like, okay, we need to like scale up even more. Or actually, it wasn't even that. It was just like they started poaching all the Go-Jek drivers, and they said, hey, if you switch to Go-Jek, we'll pay you like $200. And we found out about it, and of course there was this whole war that started between like Grab and Go-Jek. One of the things that we couldn't beat was that they were just giving out rides for free. This was around May 2015. And then so what we did to counteract that was we made a marketing campaign that was called Chaban Ramadan. So Chaban Ramadan is you give your Go-Jek driver 10,000, and then that's just for your Go-Jek service, and then we subsidize the rest, right? So what happens with supply and demand? You got like demand and supply kind of like going up, like the same, and all of a sudden demand just like went like that, right? Because you're paying less than $1 for your Go-Jek driver, and just demand was just going crazy, and supply couldn't keep up. And I'll never forget this day because it happened like on my birthday on August. And what we did was we hired a space in the National Stadium in Jakarta, which can fit like over 90,000 people or something like that. It's just like really, really big. And we called, I think we just made like a broadcast via SMS and WhatsApp and like all these things. We said, whoever wants to become a Go-Jek driver, please come over, and then we'll sign you up, and then you become part of the Go-Jek team. Well, we signed up 4,000 to 6,000 drivers a day. So then it went up from 20,000 to like 100,000 in less than 4 weeks. So there's no way you can screen these drivers. We just needed drivers to offset, like to kind of like meet our demand. But of course, what happens? Cases like yours, it's just like, there's driver fraud, there's drivers harassing people, and then we have to kind of like be like very, very strict on like SOPs on like, we have to fire all these drivers. We have to kind of like make sure that everyone is okay and stuff like that. And right now we're at a position where we have a big operations team that can kind of like screen everyone, we train everyone, and you're gonna have bad drivers here and there. I mean, I don't know how Grab's SOP is. It's pretty bad that it happened to you, and I'm sorry. But we just make sure that there's a certain standard that's met in Go-Jek. I haven't heard of like really, really bad cases, but there are cases here and there. What's crazy is that our Go-Jek jacket can be made by anyone, right? So anyone who wears a Go-Jek driver and Go-Jek jacket that pretends to be a driver and then, picks up people and was just, we get stuff like that all the time. It's like, hey, this Go-Jek driver harassed me, and then we were like, what? That's not even a Go-Jek driver. You know what I mean? So we deal with so many different factors, but the best we can do is we have a strict kind of like training policy. We check everyone and then make sure like, we have all the IDs and vet them and all that. And then we just hope that they follow protocol, right? Yeah. I mean, you're dealing with 1 million drivers. It's not really easy to deal with that many people, I mean, it's the same thing with Uber. It's the same thing. There's Uber cases all over the world. People management is one of the hardest things in these type of companies, right? The best thing that we can do is just react and make sure that we meet certain standards that is, I guess, good for everybody. I hope that answers your question. Oh, female drivers. Are you asking if we hire female drivers?
Do you have female drivers?
Oh, we have a lot of female drivers, actually, over 30,000, if I'm not mistaken. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we actually thought about that because there's actually people that were coming up and asking whether or not this was possible. But the thing is that we have a tech that recognizes what is the minimal time for the driver to come to you. That's how we pick the driver. You know what I mean? It used to be actually that we blast in multiple orders. So let's say you order a Go-Jek, that blast goes to like, 10 or 20 drivers within like a certain distance, and then whoever picks up the order will come to you. The newest tech is it blasts the guy that is literally as close to you as possible to make sure that the driver comes to you as fast as possible. So if we did it with women drivers, then that time will be delayed, and then we are going to get a really bad rating, right? So I guess to answer your question, we can do it, but then it's going to bring down the level of service of Go-Jek, which is why we didn't end up doing it. Yeah.
We have one last question here. Oh.
Well, no, what we do is in the training, there's a lot of things that makes the checklist on being like, this is not what you're supposed to do to a customer, right? And of course, there's, strict laws that we reinforce that would be like, if these are like certain criteria, if you do anything, you're automatically out. You know what I mean? And of course, like whatever happens to this person, that we will handle it from Go-Jek to make sure that, they're taken care of and like all that, because it's going to affect the image of the company, right? I mean, I don't know how Grab handled it, but yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay, so Mikey, so I actually, one of your 1,000 friends that got a message from you, try Go-Jek, right? I was still a corporate chick at that time. So I got a message from you, oh, Go-Jek. And I'm like, oh, I tried it. And I didn't get through. Maybe it's because of the one dispatcher.
This is
back in 2011. Yeah. And then after I quit and then left Jakarta and then back to Indonesia and live in Bali. And all of a sudden, I hear from my friend that are not Indonesian, you should download Go-Jek. I'm like, is that a Mikey thing, like years ago? And then I downloaded it. 2015, I remember, I was like, there's this GoPay, yeah? But then I expect the driver to buy me some hungover food, and then he's like, oh, I can't pay you with GoPay. You have to like pay the food and then to me, and then pay my service with GoPay. And I'm like, what is this? And I uninstall it. So, and then after then GoPay comes and Go Massage, everything. So I want to know from your story as a founding team, what was your biggest obstacles and as well as the aha moment from the founding team that when like from the dispatch era and then go to the 2.0 era when it's like, oh, this is going better, getting better, and blah, blah, blah. So I want to know those two moments.
Okay, the first one being the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, like what was the biggest obstacle that the founding team think like, oh, like almost give up? Is there anything like that or something that you can...
But this is like post-app, this is 2.0 or this is in the beginning?
Either.
Oh, the beginning was that we nearly shut down the company probably about 100 times.
The worst that you remember, the worst you can go.
Which is, it was just not making any money, right? You got about at most 6 people picking up the phone, and then people dispatching. And also there was a big drop on Go-Jek usage on the weekends, which is just natural because people are not using it to go to work. So there was, the rent money for the office needed to be made, and we're just not growing in numbers, and we were just like, okay.
When was it? Like
this was about 2013, 2012.
So like 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And what we had to do was, me and Nadeem personally had to loan money to the company to make sure that it actually survived, it was one of those things where we still believed that it could make a difference, but it wasn't also the right time. I believe Go-Jek's success has to do with time, which is we really lucked out on the circumstances that we were at, which was if we launched the app in 2010, the best phone during that time was a BlackBerry, which it could not work. We had to work with Android and iOS. And then circumstantially, Jakarta has one of the worst traffics in the world. So if Jakarta didn't have a traffic problem, the number of Go-Jek orders probably would not have risen that fast. We also lived in one of the most narcissistic societies that I know of, which, it became a trend to take a photo with your Go-Jek driver. They were just like, hey man, I just ordered a Go-Jek, check it out. Or they're on a ride. And so there was a lot of self-promotion. And I think this adds to your question, which was, Go-Jek just became this cool brand. And I think it had to do with the fact that it was homegrown. There's a lot of nationalists that I know don't download Grab. They're just like, screw those guys. And I only support Go-Jek. And so with this big movement that there is an Indonesian company making a difference and making my life better, well, I'm going to support it. You know what I mean? So the big aha moment, the Ministry of Transport thing was pretty big. For us to get banned and unbanned in a matter of 13 hours, that was pretty crazy. The hiring of like 100,000 drivers like in one day was a pretty big moment. I think also for me, you're breaking records with orders almost every week. Like there was this journey, right? But my big aha moment was when there's people like Facebook and Google and like companies from all over the world that have seen it all. They are the leaders in tech, and these are the VCs of the world that are pumping in millions of dollars to all these companies. And they came up to us and they're like, we've never seen a growth rate like this, ever, And you have just excelled beyond any company that we've ever seen in the whole wide world, So to grow in those numbers and be recognized by companies like this, and I think the latest big thing for us was Forbes magazine just named us the top 50 companies that is changing the world. So you're up there with like Apple, Google, Nestle. And I'm just like, we're just a bunch of guys that just made this company and it turned into this really, really big thing. So, there's so many aha moments, and I could tell you like so many stories, but when you're getting recognized by leaders like this, in the world, it's pretty amazing, I think. You know.
Cool. I think you just left the final message for everyone. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, you're just a couple of guys basically that are just normal guys that did it, that got out there and do it. So congratulations on all your success, and, you know, in particular, I hope your studio really takes off. And it's, come visit. Yeah.
Come visit.
Yeah. So,
Have a session.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Terry, for being an amazing facilitator as usual. Thank you, Mikey. I right now want to clone myself to start working for you as well, but I cannot do this, unfortunately. Guys, I really encourage you to support Mikey with his new beginning. Check his studio. Maybe you can give some advice and share the word about what he started right now. You definitely see how passionate he is and how amazing his ideas, and we really need to support these people. Thank you for being on this planet, and thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for this amazing story, and thank you guys for being here.
I think from the bottom of my heart, just to add, moment that we make in Go-Jek, I always say we are only 50% of the battle. The other 50% is you guys using Go-Jek every day to really, like, we are changing lives, and we're so happy that everyone gets to use it and be happy with it. So thank you all as well, you know.
Cool.